How do you write? The first tip I have is I try to get writing done in the morning when I'm writing a book. I try to get it done before anything else, before I open up my email, before I go on the internet, get the writing done. You know, that means getting up at 6:30 and turning on the computer and not leaving the computer until you actually have writing done. In terms of like how I do it, I notice things in the world, and then I bounce ideas off people. And I'll see something that I think is funny, and I'll tell someone else about it, and I'll see what their reaction is to it. And if their reaction is positive, then I'll think, oh, this might be an interesting thing to write about. And then I have to trust that I'm common, that if I like something, other people will like it too. So it's just about keeping your eyes open, noticing things that make you feel, and then transferring those experiences to paper, and forcing yourself to do it early in the morning before the rest of the day crowds in on you. All right, good. You want the shirt? Okay. They're all writing questions.
How do you come up with the titles of your books?
That's a great question. The titles of the books, it's all different. And as an author, you don't have complete control over titles. This is my first book, Teen Angst Nah. Its title came out of an essay that I wrote. I wrote an essay for the New York Times Magazine. The editors at the New York Times Magazine called the essay Teen Angst Nah. They thought that was a good title. I didn't make it up. I didn't have anything to do with it. When the book got published, it's a collection of stories that I wrote in high school. The editor at the book publishing company thought that was a good title and messed with it a little, changed it, just made that an ellipsis instead of an exclamation point, and that became the title. Be More Chill was a working title that stuck. He tried to come. That was what I was calling the book as I was writing it, and then we couldn't come up with any better titles. It's kind of a funny story. In the middle of writing the book, I was taking a shower, and it just popped into my head, and I thought it was a great title because it is a phrase that I used to say to my friends a lot, usually when I was late. Man, what's wrong? Why are you late for band practice? Well, it's kind of a funny story. I was on the subway, and this guy threw up everywhere, and then they had to stop the So it was a phrase that I used to use, and I thought it really fit the tone of the book. And I like this title a lot, although as a movie title, I don't know if it's so great because it's very long, and when the movie came out, they couldn't fit the title on the movie marquees in a lot of places. And my friend sent me a picture of one theater, and it said, now playing, Red, The Social Network, It's Kind of Funny. I was like, any other questions?
I know that you said the essay and everything, but okay, all right. Because I write too, and it's what I want to do in life, but sometimes I find that when I am writing, I get completely stuck and I have to stop, and then I start something completely new. So,
okay.
That,
I
yeah.
think it's really, really important to emphasize this above everything else. I emphasize this on my website. In the FAQ on my website, I have a lot of advice for writers. I also do a program that's separate from this program called From Personal to Published. It's a really detailed workshop all about writing. And one of the most important things I try to emphasize there is don't write a book. Don't start out trying to write a book. I get letters from people who, Dear Mr. Vizzini, hey, my name is Jeffrey. I'm 13 years old. I read your book. It was good. I'm writing a book too. It's going to be better than your book. Can you publish it? I get that a lot. And I always write back and I'm like, Jeffrey, don't write a book. It's very hard to write a whole book, okay? My first book, I didn't write it all at once. These are short stories that appeared in a newspaper that were written over a period of 3 years, and then it took me an additional year to edit them and put them in book form, right? George Orwell, you guys familiar with George Orwell? Mm-hmm. George Orwell said, writing a book is like going through a chronic and debilitating illness, and the only reason a man would do so, he said man, we mean person, the only reason a person would do so is if he were possessed by demons, right? Orwell was sort of a negative person, but he has a point. It's really hard, you have to be in your head, kind of in a distant place all the time as you're living your life, and you have to be really committed to it. And I've written a lot of books that didn't work, not just the one that's in my bad folder. I spent 2 years from 2007 to 2009 writing a novel for adults. I finished it. I gave it to my agent. We decided that it's just not good enough. I don't know if anyone's ever going to want to publish it. Maybe it'll be published when I'm dead. I don't know. It's really hard to write books. So don't start out trying to write a book. Start out with short pieces. And especially if you run into this problem where you get stuck and then you want to start something else, write short pieces. My recommendation is to start out by writing short stories about your own life. That's the easiest thing to do, okay? Short stories about your own life. Where can you get these things published? First of all, maybe you have a school newspaper to work with. Secondly, there's a magazine called Teen Ink that's all written by young people, published nationally. In New York, there's something called New Youth Connections that I think would accept submissions from day on. There's a magazine called The Painted Brain in Los Angeles that publishes a lot of youth work. They're out there, right? And on my website, I have a list of more resources for you. But start out by writing short pieces as opposed to writing a whole book. I think that will be the key for you to move forward with.